Week 2 of the UN World Climate Talks have started right now in Copenhagen, and that means 5 days are left for world negotiators to come together and try and strike some sort of substantive deal on climate change. Talks are expected to kick into high gear this week as world leaders begin to arrive sometime in the middle of this week. Clean Sky's Susan McGinnis joins us now live in Copenhagen as Week 2 starts off. And Susan, what a big start to Week 2, already a busy day there.
Yeah, absolutely. We are at the halfway point, Tyler, of these climate talks, and the action has not stopped since you were here covering the first 5 days of these talks. We're right at the halfway point of these talks. The action has not stopped, Tyler. This week is really going to be a critical one, the one that really determines what kind of climate change agreement comes from this gathering. This week is really considered crunch time for negotiations. So it's 3 p.m. here right now, a full day at the Bella Center. 45,000 folks are now registered for this second week, and we understand from the fire marshal capacity here is at 15,000. As for the negotiations, here's what is happening so far today. China has come out today and made a major concession. It says in the interest of making progress here on the talks, it will no longer demand that developed nations fund its efforts to fight climate change. So China comes out and says that it expects no cash to flow from the United States, from the United Kingdom and other developed nations to China. Another dramatic development that happened today, the Africa Group. Again, dramatic action, a lot like we reported to you from Barcelona, fighting what it claims is the developed world's effort to kill the Kyoto Protocol. A number of African countries have come out and said that their leaders will refuse to take part in the final days of the talks unless there is significant progress over the next few days. They say that developed countries send their leaders at the very end of the talks, and they call that a ploy to try to slip through provisions that developed nations are not agreeable to. Also today was a day featuring Energy Secretary Stephen Chu. He is now announcing a brand new energy initiative that he's talking about. It's called Climate Ready. We're going to hear a bit more about that later. Also, we will have his entire press conference on our site. Also today, we had Ed Miliband. He is the UK Energy and Climate Change Secretary. He talked about Prime Minister Gordon Brown changing his plans and coming here to Copenhagen earlier than he had planned. Miliband commented on if that might indicate that the divide between developing and developed nations is so severe that it might actually jeopardize the success of these talks.
I think it's a sign of the seriousness with which he takes this issue, and I think it is a sign that the negotiations are moving too slowly. And my very clear message today at this press conference is that negotiators and ministers need to get their act together, because leaders are starting to be on their way, including our Prime Minister. He, I think, can play a very important role in brokering and overcoming some of the key difficult issues. I've always said, as I said earlier, that leaders have a very important role in this. But frankly, it's also up to negotiators and ministers not to leave everything to the leaders, but to get their act together. And that's what we need to do today and in the coming days.
And another heavy hitter appearing here in Copenhagen today, Nobuo Tanaka. He is the executive director of the IEA, the International Energy Agency. He spoke at a press conference, and then he talked to Clean Skies News about what is needed here in Copenhagen to get the private sector moving right now, sitting on the sidelines waiting to unleash new capital.
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic because of the huge cost for inaction. And government leaders are coming here to discuss, and everybody's waiting for the signal of future investment. The money is there, even though there are some difficulties in the financial crisis. Money is there to be invested. So we need clear signal of carbon price or mechanisms where the reduction happens, and all global, let's say, players are waiting for this signal.
Nobuo Tanaka there, the executive director of the IEA, International Energy Agency. And Tyler, my full interview with Mr. Tanaka and his full press conference will be on the site.
All right, Susan, so Monday is underway. The official talks are back underway as well. But let's make no mistake, this weekend was not slow by any means. A number of unofficial events and plus all those very memorable pictures of the protests in and around Copenhagen.
Absolutely. It was quite a busy weekend. The biggest event happened on Sunday when we witnessed the largest organized demonstration so far of the summit. There was a crowd of about 40 to 100,000 environmentalists, climate activists, and others gathered there. Archbishop Desmond Tutu delivered about 1.5 million signatures calling for a fair, ambitious, and binding climate deal. Delivered that document to Evo de Boer, Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC, at the City Hall Square. That was hosted by the World Council of Churches.
We're telling them, hey, you who are sitting there making decisions, the world is waiting for a real agreement. Don't give us a political agreement. We want a legally binding agreement. Now let's just tell them. Let's tell them. Join us. Join the winning side. Join the winning side. Because you see, this is one problem. If we don't resolve it, nobody is going to survive. This is one problem where we are going to be either all winners or all losers.
An impassioned speech there from Desmond Tutu. Also, there were some of the biggest protests nearby that event yet of these 2 weeks, where hundreds were arrested. Also this weekend, members of the natural gas industry, also representatives of government, environmental groups, and academics all gathered to talk about and debate the future role of natural gas in the United States and around the world. There was a panel discussion that was held in downtown Denmark with former Colorado Senator Tim Wirth. He's president of the UN Foundation. Also, Chesapeake CEO Aubrey McClendon and Maggie Fox. She's CEO of the Alliance for Climate Protection, and several other members there. In the middle of this lively discussion and debate came an offer to Maggie Fox from Chesapeake's McClendon.
Within the next 30 days, Maggie will get an invitation from me and from other members of the organization called America's Natural Gas Alliance, which represents the 29 largest public independent producing companies, and ask her to gather some of her colleagues. And I don't know why we can't start having a conversation that helps us understand what her concerns are, their concerns are, and helps them understand more about what we do, and you know, there are things to be scared about and there are things to not be scared about, and we have to understand that, you know, when you don't burn a natural gas molecule, you're going to burn a lump of coal, and people have to decide which of those they want to do.
Now, Chesapeake Energy is a funder of the American Clean Skies Foundation, which does support Clean Skies TV. So within 30 days, we expect McClendon to invite environmental leaders and 5 to 6 companies in the natural gas business to join in, talk about the industry's methods for extracting natural gas and any environmental concerns that need to be aired. No response so far from Fox, but we will follow that invitation to see, Tyler, when and where those talks take place. Also, that full panel is available on our site.
Susan, some breaking news this morning. I've heard that a number of major press conferences there have been canceled. Somewhat unusual because these press conferences are planned fairly well in advance, right?
Yes, and they've been happening daily. But yeah, it just happened a few minutes ago. Both the EU and the U.S. delegations canceled their daily press conferences. They are said to be in the thick of negotiations over what is going to be talked about next. This has to do with the Africa group that I mentioned earlier. The Africa group is insisting not enough priority is being given to the Kyoto Protocol. They want more talk about that. The plan was to discuss a parallel document, the larger treaty. And so the Africa group has pretty much stopped everything from going forward until that is solved. And we had Connie Hedegaard, who's president of the whole conference now, calling a special session of all delegations to hash that out. So yeah, some breaking news just a few moments ago. We'll be following that. We'll have more on that for you on the Energy Report at 4. Tyler?
And the drama continues in Copenhagen.
It does.
Susan McGinnis, thank you very much.